Hey there, Internet friends, and welcome to the second episode of Season 1 of That Ultimate Video Game List Show. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey from ThatNerdySite.com, and this is the show where each season, me and a panel of my friends will try and create the ultimate top 20 video game list with two main bits of criteria. Only one game per franchise, and only one game per console. Joining me on this inaugural season are three of my fellow nerds from That Nerdy Site, Logan Wilkinson,
Hi there.
Cameron Abbott,
What's going on?
and Frank Bizzani.
Hey, everybody.
Hey guys, good to have you back for episode 2, which
We're recording a week later.
Peek behind the curtain. We're recording about half an hour after episode 1, so we have it ready to go for everybody. You can find this show each and every week on That Nerdy Site and hopefully podcast services around the globe. Please rate, review, like, subscribe everywhere that you can, so that we can get some traction as we continue to kind of roll out all the new shows we're doing over at That Nerdy Site. If you enjoy what you hear, what we bring to you on this show, you can support us at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. Help us keep bringing these fun shenanigans and chaos to you. So, if you're new to the show, if you missed the first episode, here's the way the show works. Each week, the panel takes turns adding a round of games to the list. Once a game is added, all other games from that franchise and from that console are out of the running. Games can be submitted for any console that they have been released on, including remasters, but collections of games are not allowed. Additionally, each panelist has one veto that they can use to shoot down a game when it is submitted, keeping all other games of that franchise or console in the running. None of us have used our vetoes so far, so those are all still in play. If a veto is used, the rest of the panel can come together to save a game by unanimously voting to override the veto. I don't know if that'll ever actually happen, but I put it in there as a rule just in case.
I could see it happening for like certain things.
Yeah.
Like
If Cameron had
the
had
virtual boy, yeah.
put something for the Virtual Boy on and somebody does, yeah, we'll see. Once all 20 games have been selected, we will then shift into ranking the list, and the top game of each season gets retired into the Hall of Fame and becomes ineligible for future seasons of the series. So to recap last week's episode, we each kind of came out swinging with 4 all-time great games on the list. Frank started us off with Persona 4 Golden, thus eliminating any other Persona games and any PlayStation Vita games from the list. I came out with Final Fantasy VI on the Game Boy Advance, so Super Nintendo is still in play. Logan hit us with The Last of Us on PlayStation 3. So PS3 is out of the running for anything else. And Cameron closed us out with BioShock on the Xbox 360. So most of that generation is now kind of locked away, and we have those 4 games kind of kicking things off. Each week, the order of operations kind of rotates. So whereas Frank was the first selection last week, he now moves to the back of the line this week, and things will kick over to me for this week's first selection. And I've got like 2 big ones that I can kick off with, and I don't. I'm gonna go with and hope that the other one I can still maybe squeeze on the list somewhere down the line. I'm gonna go with God of War on the PlayStation 4.
Ooh, we're going right. We're going there immediately.
Wow.
Damn, okay, we're doing it. We're doing
going right
it.
to the current generation.
The jugular here. Yeah, all
taking
right.
any other PlayStation 4 potentially out of the running. I've talked with Logan many a time that my top games at this point are kind of a toss-up on any given day between Final Fantasy VI, which I got on last week, and God of War, kind of the reboot in 2018. Was it 20? God, yeah, that game is only a year and a half old at this point.
A year old. It feels like forever.
I love everything about that game. I think it does. I think it did a great job, kind of like rebooting that series and that character. And it very much feels like a game that is growing up with its audience, instead of trying to stay where Kratos had been in years past. And I think it's one of those things I always want to write a piece. I've just never gotten around to it, but like I look around the same time that came out, you had kind of people like David Jaffe and Cliff Bleszinski, um,
Mm.
of that same like God of War, Gears of War era, trying to either chase trends or just not grow up with Drawn to Death and with Lawbreakers and stuff, and both of them I think kind of suffered as a result of not growing over time in the way that Cory Barlog managed to do with God of War and Kratos, and kind of taking that what was often perceived as a one-note character and really kind of giving him, a family connection with Atreus, and just kind of re-envisioning what that character can be in a new setting. Mechanically, I love so many things about that game. The Leviathan axe is definitely up there on like all-time video game weapons and combat
Yes.
and stuff. And yeah, I think it's beautiful. I remember I played through the game, platinumed it, and then like immediately dove back in again, and I've played it I think 2 more times since then. So I've played the game 4 times in a year and a half, because it's just a great fun experience, and it is my favorite game on the PlayStation 4. While there are certainly obviously many other great selections on the PS4, this is what I'm putting forth. So I submit that game for your consideration, my Ultimate Video Game List Tribunal. What have you?
Wow, you.
He went right. That's the thing. That's the, I guess
Oh,
I
wow.
envisioned the PS4 being potentially the most divisive fight to begin with, which is why like in my like pick for the last race, I deliberately chose the PS3 over the PS4.
Yeah, I would have vetoed you on The Last of Us for PS4 if you had tried to take that. And now
Also
I'm
because
just
like it feels it's a PS3 game to me,
It
like
is.
in my heart and mind too. It's also that.
it is, but like this is just Trevor, you just did a reversal of what you did last week. Like you straight up heel turned. You were like the face. You're like, I'm doing the GBA. Don't worry, guys. We're gonna keep the SNES out
Yeah,
there.
it was GBA
And-
PS4.
And now you're just like, oh, by the way, this modern console that you all love, that you're all thinking of, like, how could I pick a game? I'm taking it. I'm taking it.
I am putting it forth for submission. I like I can't argue for this game on any other console, so that's why I'm putting it forth on the PS4.
It's
you-
interesting for me too because like the PS4.
Whoa.
I mean,
Oh, and I also knew very full well with this panel that this is not a panel that loves God of War game as much as I do. So
I mean like I don't know. I can't speak to Frank or Cameron, but like I have such a weird relationship with that game, obviously, but like I like God of War a lot. It's interesting though because a month or two ago, a few buddies of mine who do a podcast did a thing where they ranked the like 10 best video game consoles of all time. And in my head, I was watching. I was like, "Well, I don't really know what my list would look like," and it ended up with like the PS4 being in the top 2, and then me being like, "Is the PS4 the best video game console ever?" And it was just me like thinking about that, and it's like, I think I love Uncharted 4 more than God of War. That's a purely emotion-based thing because my connection to like Uncharted and like what that series has meant to me over a decade and those characters.
Oh my
and
gosh!
everything
I just
like
realized
that.
if you do this, if we let you do this, you are screwing Uncharted out of this
Yeah,
list.
there will not be Uncharted on this, and
There-
like I think
yes,
because the
that
Vita's
is.
also gone.
Yeah,
So you can't
Golden
even get
Abyss
Golden
is
Abyss.
out.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh! Not only that, but like, there's so many unique games on the PS4 that don't exist anywhere else. Oh my gosh!
I think
Yeah.
the thing for me is that I love Uncharted 4. I love so much about the PS4. Like it's a console like that I loved more than I thought I did until like a month ago. And it's like, fuck, I love this console. I will not object because I think it's a thing for me where I think it's kind of the reasoning Trevor gave for Bioshock, where it's like not all games I have to absolutely love and adore. But having said that, I love God of War. It's still great. Just because I didn't like it as much as like the kind of critical reaction to the same like fervor and degree does not mean that video game is not amazing and spectacular. And like as somebody who played God of War 1 and 2 and 3 and like these early PS2 games, how they transformed that character and what that series was about and how it played and how the narrative was told is unimaginable. Like, I just can't fathom it. It is such a huge transformation from where that character was. Because, like, Kratos fucking sucked. Like, he blew in God of War 1 2. Like, he was, like, not the best part of the game by any means. And then, like, you get to the newest God of War on PS4, and, like, he's such a well-rounded character. He's so well fleshed out. He's so well acted. I think his relationships with other characters and, like, what he provides in terms of a heart and kind of the soul of that game is amazing to see that kind of transformation of that character. And I think Trevor said it here and has said it numerous times really well, where it's like they allowed Kratos and they allowed the God of War series to kind of grow up with us. And I think that's why it resonated with so many people. And like, it is not my favorite game in the PS4, but like, I can definitely say that, like, I'd be very proud to say God of War is the kind of game that would represent that console in this generation. So like, I have no objections to it. It is a fantastic game, and also like, I absolutely fuck with the Leviathan Axe every single day, man. Oh my god, that thud back in your hand.
Oh, this is so difficult for me.
Yep.
Yeah, I am looking through the list, and to a point you brought up, I think on last week's episode, Logan, of like us very much, the four of us, obviously very heavily involved with the Kind of Funny community, having carried over from the Beyond community. Like PS3, PS4, and the Vita are very much like our
That's the
stuff,
Holy Trinity,
and
yeah.
this would put all of those out of the running. And so now, like, this does potentially open the
Pandora's
can
box
of worms of like,
bad
okay,
consoles.
I guess Pandora's box is a better analogy for this particular selection. To really okay, yeah, we're gonna have to start digging deep into maybe the ones we're not
Very much
familiar
beyond
with.
our wheelhouses too, right?
Unless somebody pulls the veto out on this one.
Man, but here's the thing. I don't know if somebody pulls the veto out, like, even if it's me, if, like, that wouldn't just be overturned. The only thing I can think of, like it's one, like, I don't care for the Uncharted games. They like are in a genre of games I don't enjoy. But to lock out Uncharted with, like, when that is, like, Nathan Drake is the Sony mascot.
Mm.
And to see that happen, but then also on top of that, you have games that really, like, are a testament to not just quality and of games, but also as, like, more abstract but still ended up being major mainstream successes, like Bloodborne.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, I'm thinking through the list of games I am like self-awarely taking out of this out of the running. Bloodborne, which, yeah, I don't like.
Trevor
but,
does with glee. Yeah.
but I respect its place on as a PlayStation 4 exclusive. Horizon Zero Dawn was my game of the year in 2017. Gets cut off the list, and yeah, like, Uncharted 4 was, like, the last few years, like, PlayStation 4 exclusives have been in my one or two spot kind of every year. So,
and you're doing
like,
it to it.
I am, and that is a testament to what I think about God of War. And one of the things I remember, I want to say I got introduced to the quote at like a PAX panel at some point. But somebody on the panel basically, or maybe it was on Twitter, I don't know, somewhere, somebody basically said, like, within every, good 30-hour game, there is a great 15-hour game, if you edit out all the other stuff. And I look at God of War as, like, it was a good 50-hour game that they edited down to a phenomenal 30-hour game. If even that, like, it's been a while now since I played it, but it, like, that is the sentiment, is that, like, if you go through and do everything, like, and everything can tie into the main push of the story, everything that you do, all the side stuff you do with Kratos is pushing towards your own, like, making yourself stronger to go on this journey, and they're even self-aware and recognize that when, Kratos talks to Atreus, like, dismissing him for all the things he wants to help people out with, but saying, like, we're doing it because it's making you stronger for this journey. I love that. Even the signposting that you see in games like Uncharted, where it's like, okay, I know I can go there because that's a yellow thing. They give an in-story reason for it at the end of the game that, like, sticks with me to this day of why I love even that small detail of the game,
Yeah.
of that element. But I fully recognize that like it's going for the jugular to put it up here here in week number 2.
I definitely agree with a lot of what's already been said regarding God of War, and I know, like, kind of like we've been talking about too. It definitely is sad because it rules out Uncharted,
Mm-hmm.
4, let alone even like the Nathan Drake collection with all the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
three.
Yeah.
Also, just like definitely, it is sad because of also Spider-Man, which is a game I personally also love and got the platinum in.
Yep.
But I think when we're talking about kind of like we did last week with these games that are like masterpieces and represent these
Mm-hmm.
consoles, I definitely think that God of War like kind of holds that title, and I don't object to it being on this list at all. I think there's so many amazing moments in there and so many great dungeons that you get to kind of go in and explore. And I also love the relationship between like the father and the son, and like I think they really nailed a lot of what they were going for
Yeah.
there. Also has one of the best boss fights ever in a video game with the stranger at the beginning.
Yep.
I
Yeah, that's a great point.
definitely I think that's like there's a lot of great boss fights in God of War, but I think that's like a standout in gaming and definitely just like amazing all around.
I
Yep.
think too. We talked last week about how Bioshock has such a great twist, but like the kind of there are a lot of really good twists in like God of War, but one of them being how like what you thought the game was even about is not actually what it's even about in a lot of ways. Is like a really clever twist, right? And like I think what this game is just really clever and really smart, and I think to Trevor's point, they use every one of those 30 hours to build that, to make that world so alive. Like again, like I said last week for my own pick for the last rows, it's like that world feels so immersive and so real. Every footstep and like square inch of it, and like God of War is a world with like flying snake dragon monster things and like all these crazy mythological creatures, but it just feels real. So like you just feel so into that world and so into that space and time. And like part of it for me too is that I don't even like it's that thing of it because if God of War were vetoed, I don't know what game like it'd have to be Uncharted 4. Like there wouldn't even be other like another game that I think could like compete against it. And so it's that thing of what do I think is a better representative game for the PS4? And I think that's a legitimate argument. I think that's a legitimate debate. But at the same time, in my head, it's that thing of, but I don't think Uncharted 4 is Naughty Dog's best game, even, right? So then it's this weird thing of like, I think The Last of Us is a better game than Uncharted 4, whereas I think very clearly God of War is the best thing that that studio has done. And I just think that I think the way Frank said it, I like a lot. Where this is a game that is just a masterpiece. It is a game that I think I have no real objection saying defines that console generation. And to a point that Trevor mentioned for my pick, I can now say for his, when The Last of Us Part 2 comes out, this game might not be in the list in the next season of this show. Like it could knock off my pick or it could knock off your pick, where it's like each one of these things could be gone after The Last of Us Part 2 comes out. Like it'll be very interesting to see. Like this is a perfectly timed season. Like we're just like 6 months away, whatever it is, from this game with like huge consequences for like kind of a lot of the show. Cameron, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Like the thing is, I don't. This is so hard because there's no way to put like.
That's the thing.
There's no representation of the Soul series. Then if we do this.
I'm totally fine with that.
Same.
I can
Yeah.
totally rest.
Oh,
yeah, rest
darn.
that easier
Totally.
without
Oh
it. It's
no!
like,
I'm alone on this panel. No.
Because it's that thing for me where it's like the only game that I think that can legitimately brought up that would like sway me would be Uncharted 4, and you're not going to bring that game up because you don't like Uncharted. So it's like I don't like if you veto it, it's like all right, but like
No, but then that's
I
the
would be, like,
we're diametrically
override that veto.
opposed on any other
Opposed,
game
yeah.
for PS4.
Also,
Thank
Souls
you for that.
came to Xbox One, right? Could you argue for it there?
It's true. That's true.
Like Dark Souls 3.
Or
Yeah.
or the Dark Souls remaster on the Switch.
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah.
There's the gif of that small Asian baby that's wagging its finger, and Trevor, I'm giving that to you right now. That is the gif I'm showing you. The audience can't hear or see it, but that's what I'm giving Trevor.
Neither can we. we
Yeah, I
can't
was
see or
gonna
hear it
say, we
either.
can't.
Like nobody can see or hear this thing that you're describing.
That's accurate.
Also, gifs don't make noise.
True.
Anyway, no, I can't veto it. I think it's going on the list. It's taking PS4. It's certainly
What
taking
a-
the God of War series. That's for sure.
Oh
Oh,
yeah, that
yeah,
was an easy one.
100%.
There was no debate about that one. Yeah.
I mean, like, I want to throw this out there because I think God of War, like the first God of War game, I think is a really good, strong,
I think
character
I
piece
think that
for
first God of War
Kratos.
game
It is.
great.
And it's not until like the later games that
God of War
Kratos
2
just
and 3
becomes
are
like
not as good.
screaming. Like God of War 2 and 3 became like what we think of when we think
Yeah.
of like angry pre PS4 God of War
I
Kratos.
think it's second half of God of War 2 is where I think
I
it
think
falls
the opening
into
half,
that,
God of
and it
War
never-
2, he's just a dick right from the jump in that game.
Well, he's a dick because he's gotten
he's a
screwed
fucking
over.
dick. No,
He's a
his,
dick
his,
'cause he
his,
got screwed
his
over by
reasoning
being
and
made a
motivations
god.
don't make any sense in God of War 2.
He just wants to die in God of War
it's
2.
God of War 2, yeah, it's just no. Like God of War 2 is a better gameplay game than God of War 1, and like it's got better story moments in it. But Kratos himself is way worse in God of War 2 than he is in God of War 1.
I would agree with that, actually, yeah.
But I also
Anyway.
and I appreciate that in a series like known for its like giant beautiful boss fights like the Titans across the various games or like Poseidon to kick off God of War 3. Like I like even Frank that you called out the stranger fight, which is a significantly like smaller scale fight, but it is such a phenomenal fight to kick off that game in a series of like known for all of those wonderful fights and sequences. So, all right.
Oh, man,
So
I'm
it
just
sounds
thinking,
like
I just thought of the dragon fight, and I'm like, man, that fight was so good.
Oh yeah, definitely. I also love and I guess it's like I don't even want to like understate how impressive it was that they were able to do that too. But the whole like one shot game, like just one
Yes.
tracking
It's
shot, like through the whole
mind-blowing, yeah.
game, like that's kind of amazing. And I feel like it definitely adds like to the entire experience.
sounds like I get to survive another day, and God of War makes it onto the list.
What a opening top 5. We were like,
Jeez.
we've got half the top 10 just pretty well settled out there. We've got like this is a hell of a top 5.
Oh, wow.
Like we somewhere in this 5 games are probably the top 3 games on this list. Like this is a hell of a top. And then now it's gonna be me, and I'll change it up very quickly. But like, god damn, what a top 5 we have right here.
All right, yeah, hit us, Logan. Hit us with what you got.
So I've actually thought of a few different things for this. Like my pick is definitely gonna be like a way more eclectic one. And like I've thought of a few different consoles or like platforms. But like ultimately the one that I'm gonna go with is one that like I feel good with, right? Like I feel like it's a game that like I'm at least gonna make my like pitch. I'm gonna make my argument for, which is gonna be Sonic 2 for the Sega Genesis. And like, cause like, and here's the thing. Sonic, like, it's that thing of like, whether or not Sonic is better than Mario, it doesn't matter. Like he's not.
He's not.
Like, he's not. Yeah. But like that doesn't matter, right? Like
But
that's
he
always
makes
been,
it.
like,
He makes it onto our list before Mario does. Like none of
Because
us have pulled
that's-
out a Mario
that's-
salvo.
That's a dangerous...
that's the actual biggest fight in the game. Like more than Zelda, it'll be Mario. Will be the one that's gonna be the bloodbath. We're all
Yeah.
smart. We're all cowards and smart. But like Sonic is one where, for me at least, it's that thing of like that was never the argument. Like it was never like, is Sonic better than Mario? That's a boring argument. Like no, he's not. But like Sonic is still great, and like if you're a '90s kid, like all of us really were, like he was such a big part of your gaming lineage. I feel like, and it's such a big like kind of iconic image of that era, right? And like, at least for me, Sonic games are fun, right? Like, and I should preface that by saying the Genesis games and Sonic Mania are fun, and like those games just like it. It's all about going fast. You got to go fast, right? And like it's just kind of this like fluid motion, and like Trevor's shaking his head, but like. Yeah, like when you stop,
I'm
like, it's not
shaking
as
my head
good.
at the image that Cameron just put in our Discord chat. That's sorry.
But like,
that was
but
unrelated.
like when you
That was a delayed thing, by the way. My bad. I
That's
should have
very
hit enter earlier. That was supposed to come in when we were still talking about God of War.
But
My
like
apologies.
when you like Sonic is one for me where it's just fun, right? Like it's just like a fun video game. It feels very early '90s to me. It feels very kind of of childhood and nostalgic, and like also that thing of I think the Sega Genesis should get some sort of representation. It's a console that I enjoyed and like was a part of my life as a kid, and I think Sonic is the title that is most representative of that console. I think he's the like character that's most like emblematic of both why that system was really cool and fun, and also like the kind of the limitations of that system and like why it wasn't quite as good as Nintendo. And like I don't think Sonic 2 is the best Sonic game. That's clearly Sonic Mania is the best Sonic game. It's not even close. But like Sonic 2 is the best of this era of Sonic, and I think
I don't know if that's the best Sonic game. Sonic Mania. What's the one where he kisses the human girl? That's the best one, right?
Nope. Sure not. That's sure not it. I can confirm, in fact, as somebody who's played like a few hours of that game for a book club, sure not.
I don't know if you can count for that book club anymore. You quit like a coward.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
quit because I praised my sanity over the worst video game I ever played in my life.
No, I retroactively wish I'd picked Sonic 06 so that Logan couldn't make this pick.
But no, like I like Sonic. And like there's a lot of bad Sonic games. There's more bad Sonic games than there are good Sonic games.
Some might argue there's no such thing as a good Sonic game.
Right, and like I would argue against that. Like I think the issue with Sonic for me at least is that like people are like weirdly smug, I feel like, and like condescending about Sonic games, and it's like if you don't like Sonic games, I get it. Like it's cool. But like people do, and like I like Sonic, and like I think when he works, it's a lot of fun, and like I think the Genesis, that's kind of how I would describe that console. Like when it works, like that console is a lot of fun. It's got really cool gems in it, and like for me, that's Sonic. So that's my opening salvo pitch.
I mean, I didn't think we'd see a Genesis game on the list, personally, but
I teased a lot that I would put it on here.
Yeah, and that's true. You and I had talked about Sonic 2,
that's more of a threat than a tease.
At the time I even said like, well, then you have to ask, is that the best Sonic game? And like part of the first episode and change have done the work for you, in that most of the systems of Sonic Mania is on are out of the running now. But you still could have argued it for it on the Switch, I guess.
Switch.
But yeah,
you want to walk into that battleground?
No, I certainly
feel like
it is the best
yeah,
game on
yeah.
the Switch. So
Yeah.
so of your remaining options, I will say, like, I think it is a safe choice, Logan. I think you're being a coward, as you said, but I won't, like, I don't care enough about keeping Sonic and Sega off the list to veto it. And I will say that of the Sonic games, yeah, it's like one or two after like Sonic Mania for me. So it passes by me, even if like I would just not it like this is one of the first games I'm like, all right, I know what our game number 20 is now.
Now, hear me out. And I'm not, like, depending on how this floats, I will invoke my veto. 2 words. Lion King.
Okay.
On the Sega Genesis?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't... It's another one, like, I kind of stand by... I wouldn't have argued for any games on the Sega Genesis being on the list. So I'm not, like, if you want to veto this in the guise of presenting Lion King later down the line, I'm good. Like, I don't care one way or the other.
Logan, don't say I never did anything for you. I will not invoke my veto.
I mean, like, I think all the Disney games from the 90s are, like, not as good as people remember them being. Like, this is, like, to me, it's, like, the reverse Sonic, where it's, like, these games weren't any better. Like, people just think that they were, and, like, they just, like, think these games were cool because, like, they were kids and they get to play as Simba, but, like,
I just want to keep Sonic off the list.
Yeah,
I don't think
like,
Sonic
all the
deserves
Disney
to be
Sonic
anywhere
games
on
are
a top 25 list, ever.
Sonic is an important part of video game history. Like, that's the thing. Like, he just is. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, in the same vein where it's, like, Crash Bandicoot for PS1, like, those Crash Bandicoot games aren't great, but, like, he's an important part of that, of the history of video games. And, like, a lot of people got their start into games because of Crash. And, like, Sonic's history is 3 times as long as Crash's, like, 4 times as long as Crash. Like, he's just been around for forever, right? Like, there's been a lot of bad Sonic stuff, but, like, also, like, think of, like, there are people who wouldn't have played, like, video games when they did if not for, like, Sonic or, like, Crash. And, like, I feel like
I have a possibility for you, and we'll settle it with this. Is monumentalizing like bad mascots from like failed mascots.
But I don't think he's a bad
Well,
mascot.
hear-
Like, I
hear
don't
me out.
think he's
Hear me out.
bad.
Is it possible that we look at these mascots and the way that we kind of prop them up? Is it, you know what? I'm just going to kibosh it. That's it. I just realized what I was about to say. We're going to go ahead and move on. I think there's no veto for this. Sonic 2 makes the list.
Very curious what, like, when Cameron shoots himself down.
Yeah, I was like, oh shit.
Like, I'll write it out in chat, but like, yeah, there's a promise that it will never be uttered.
Definitely right in chat now.
Well, yeah.
Sonic caused 9/11 was what Cameron was gonna say.
Sonic proves that steel can't melt. Sonic can't melt steel beams. Everybody knows that.
Yeah. Frank, any Sonic thoughts?
Frank?
Honestly, I'm not super well versed in a lot of the Sonic games, especially even Sonic 2, like specifically, but I definitely don't really like object to that being like on the list or being the Genesis game that, we go forward with. I'm upset that we can't do Sonic Adventure 2, but it's really just for that one San Francisco scene, really. But, so I guess the whole game has to be better than like just that 2 minutes.
What a
So I'm just like,
I love you so much.
And we already established the best Sonic game is the one where he kisses a human girl.
No. Stop.
the game that nearly broke Logan.
God, it really did.
All right. So yeah, I guess it sounds like Sonic 2 is making the list, and yes, that definitely adds a new flavor to our list.
Yeah,
heretofore.
we're getting flavorful here.
Like,
All right.
not being able to put Uncharted on the list has broken Logan so much. He's making the rest of us suffer by putting Sonic on the list. Like, this is a punishment for letting not putting Uncharted on the list. This is our punishment.
You didn't put Drake in the list. I had to get somebody on here. All right, some adventurer out here. It gets better too because now it's gonna be Cameron, and like I'm just like he's gonna put something on here that's gonna be very eclectic. I feel
Yeah. What do you got for us, Cameron?
I was thinking about going eclectic, but I'm actually making a bold.
You're gonna do something. Insane.
No, it's a bold choice.
No matter what
it's a bold
say.
choice for sure.
God damn it, Cameron! I hate you so much already.
Now, quick question.
You're the fucking John Steinbeck of podcasting. Oh my god.
Sorry. Quick question though. When there are dual examples of a game, like say like two different copies of basically identical games come out at the same time as part of like a quote unquote like color and color
You gotta
combo.
pick one Pokemon or the other.
Okay, that's what I wanted to do.
God.
Yep.
I thought he was like, is he asking about track and field or the other one that came out before that?
Like I would count Pokemon Red and Pokemon Fire Red as like the same game on different consoles, but like Red versus Blue and Blue like Blue and Leaf Green would be like comparable games for the conversation, but you don't get like Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue just because I'm. That's one of those like the weird little things in there.
I'm okay with that. That's something I wanted to float to see what would be the case for that. But so now that judgment has been reined in, I am going to go ahead and say
because there is a right answer between Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue and Pokemon Yellow.
So I'm going to say Pokemon Soul Silver for the Nintendo DS.
No, sure. I thought you were gonna be like maybe N64. I was like, I've never even played I don't even know what the fuck a DS is. Yeah, whatever. Okay, sure, that's fine for me. Whatever.
Like the DS has some incredible games, but I really think, and it like Pearl and Diamond are also really great Pokemon games on those consoles, Gen 4. But what they did to take Silver and Gold from the Game Boy, specifically because people may not know this, those cartridges had batteries in them that would go bad. So you could no longer play those games anymore. And so when they re-released them, it was awesome because very few copies had survived on Game Boy. But one of the really amazing things is they utilized the dual screens in the DS and actually like took the kind of concepts that they did in Pearl and Diamond and revamped them to make them even better in Soul Silver and Heart Gold. I picked Soul Silver over Heart Gold because I've always been a Silver kid. I've always thought that Lugia is way cooler than the giant dodo bird that is Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh.
Mhm.
Anyway, I digress. But because I have to pick one or the other, I think they're comparable games, of course. But to pick one or the other, I would say Soul Silver is just it like the way that it kind of set up what we would then see going forward as like a modern Pokemon game. Similar to how I think we're about to see Sword and Shield do that again on the Nintendo Switch. What they did for that on the DS, that would then continue on through the 3DS versions of the games X and Y and Sun and Moon, really did set like the new standard of what to expect out of those games. And so for that reason, I would say not only do they recreate a classic Game Boy game and make it amazing, they also shipped it with a pedometer so you could transfer a Pokemon to the little pedometer thing and it would level up while you walked. And yes, as a fat kid, I did walk for Pokemon.
Well, I mean, yeah, I have mine like again right behind me over on my like collection. For you guys who can see my video, like right behind there, behind the couch is where my like DS stuff is, and I have my pedometer there with. I was a Heart Gold kid, but yeah, I have it over there. I like I fall in the same kind of camp here as with Sonic, where I'm like, I personally don't care enough about any of the Pokemons to have really like made a
Also
case
that.
for any one over the others. So like whichever one you had selected, I've been like, cool, fine, unless like we landed on a system that I would have maybe tried to like make a push for.
Hmm.
Um,
And that was what I was worried about, whether to go with the classic on the Game Boy versus the DS remastered versions. And I ended up going with the quality of the DS remastered versions anyway. So
yeah, and that's like Silver and Gold. I remember being so into them that like the original Game Boy versions, I downloaded like Japanese ROMs and tried to learn Japanese to like play those games at that time. It did not go well, and I was able to get through a couple gyms just because like those games are so formulaic, and even without understanding a word of what I was reading, I was able to like progress through enough of it. Um, uh, but yeah, then like that's also probably like the last time I really truly cared about like the franchise, because it did just kind of end up feeling like the same game over and over again. Um, but I and then and like it also introduced kind of the okay, we're gonna throw this stuff into this game that's only gonna exist in like one version of this series, and then it's gonna be gone and replaced with some other thing the next time around. Like, 'cause in this one, couldn't you like? Was this the first one where you could like dress up your Pokemon, or you had like a clubhouse that you could like take your Pokemon into and stuff?
so they incorporated that into Soul Silver, but it originated with Pearl and Diamond. But I
Mm.
really think that it came full circle with like the Soul. Like I said, they took everything they started doing in Pearl and Diamond and made it just so much better in Soul Silver, to the point where, and Heart Gold, to the point where it's just better. Not only that, but they have more in-depth competitions. That's also when they started doing the where you could start doing the like the data, like the worldwide trading got bigger. Like there's just the versioning of what we would then consider, like what people now consider the modern Pokemon era, started with Soul Silver and Heart Gold. I feel. Um,
Yeah. Ultimately, like I'm looking through a list of like other big Nintendo DS games that would be cutting off the list, and like admittedly, like my first thought was, well, you're now losing Joey Noel because this takes Nintendogs out of the running.
it
Um,
does, but it also, this is a hard choice for me too, because this also took Elite Beat Agents off the
I
list, and
was gonna
that
say
game
like
is near
Elite
and dear
Beat
to my
Agents,
heart.
The World Ends with You. I'd always heard great things about, even if I never got around to playing it myself. But yeah, like um, I it's a Pokemon game. Pokemon definitely like belongs on probably any top games list. So I'm fine with including that as our I don't care enough about, like I said earlier, any other Pokemon to veto it and say no. We should be arguing for Pokemon X instead or something like that.
I mean, that's my thing where it's like I'm somebody who's played a few hours of Pokemon in my entire life outside of like Pokemon Snap. So it's like, all right, sure. And then DS is like, all right, sure. So it's like, yeah, like unless Frank has like a compelled reason, it's like I don't, it's whatever. I'm
I hadn't
totally
even thought
indifferent.
about that, but yeah, that's a 1-2 punch at Joey because this also does take Pokemon Snap out of the running. I wasn't
I
even
thought
thinking
about
about
that. It's like how much would I fight for a snap
And yeah, like the
for
like if
N64?
depending on how like the rest of this series goes, I might regret this.
Yeah.
Where I
Yes.
would have wanted to just mess with you, Cameron. Because like the only like potential veto I would have put on this would be I think just in and not in like a gameplay sense, but like in its place in history. I think Pokemon Go is a much more like impressive cultural phenomenon
Oh, for
than
sure.
any of the like individual games. So like I might have considered vetoing this in favor of Pokemon Go on mobile, but I don't care that much. And you have not. If you had vetoed Final Fantasy VI or God of War, I might have considered retaliation. But you had not, so Pokemon Soul Silver survives
Mutually assured
me.
destruction lets us survive once more.
There we go.
So
Anything to add, Frank?
No, I'm totally with you guys on this one. Where there's definitely I put a lot of hours into a lot of the Pokemon games, especially when I was younger. But like when it comes to this one, like I'm totally cool with that being, the title. And then like Logan said with the DS, like that's totally cool. All the games I had on my DS were all Pokemon, so I mean I think this one's cool.
Yeah, mine were Pokemon or Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior, depending on what they were called at the time, and like again Final Fantasy like ports. So like I like and because I'd already taken Final Fantasy IV out of the running with my Final Fantasy VI pick, like Final Fantasy IV would have been my DS game because I think
no, that
the
version's so good.
I like that I like that they put so much into that remaster for it. But I, I don't care enough.
Yeah.
And I already like I ended that conversation with picking Final Fantasy VI anyway. So
Yeah, I've even pushed for Final Fantasy 3 on the Nintendo DS because that game is super good.
yeah, and the
But
first time we got it over the stateside.
mhm. But you took Final Fantasy 6, so I don't have
Yep,
to feel conflicted about that.
there you go.
I do
All
feel
right,
conflicted about Elite Beat Agents though. That's a phenomenal game.
all right.
Frank, what you got for
Frank,
us?
round us out for round two.
Get crazy, get wild, man.
I see. I'm headed that direction. I think we might see the first veto here. Like this, I might set the
Ooh,
record
Oh
here.
gosh.
ooh, okay, hell yeah, hell yeah.
I think we're about. I don't. I was just gonna say we're gonna enter the battleground, but I don't know if I have much to stand on. But this is. I feel like this was a very like culturally important game. I feel like this also did really help define the generation and like me
Okay,
growing up.
okay.
And that's why I'm gonna say I'm gonna pull out Tony Hawk, and I decided
Ooh,
on Pro Skater 2 on the PlayStation 1.
Oh,
ooh,
that's
ooh. Okay, yeah. Oh,
gosh, that is.
All right. Yeah. While we recover, make your case for Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2.
This is like the Tony
And
Hawk.
and specifically, I think why it should be the PlayStation 1 representative game on the list.
The entire Tony Hawk franchise I feel like is really important and especially like near and dear to my heart. And I grew up playing every single one of those, every single thing, because I think that was still Activision that entire time. So there was one every single year,
mm-hmm.
and had all of them. And I definitely think Pro Skater 2 is like one of the standouts going all the way back. And I definitely think that's when they nailed a lot of the level design and a lot of just the way the like the physics feel and the combos kind of flow together. There's also just like a lot of great unlockable characters and levels and just a lot of like secrets to find. And the soundtrack is also just one of the best. And I also feel like, again, like I love the franchise as a whole, and I feel like those soundtracks really informed just like what music I still listen to. But I feel like Pro Skater 2 is like again like the height of that and kind of the one I thought to kind of bring up and kind of try to showcase here for the list.
So I'll kick things off for this one because I ultimately have no objection. The PlayStation 1 for me was very much like my Final Fantasy system, so I've already like eliminated most of the games that I would have considered for the PlayStation 1 era anyway. The few holdouts that I would have that like if we had gotten to this point later down the line, I might have thrown Harvest Moon Back to Nature.
Back to Nature.
Symphony of the Night.
That it is my favorite of the Harvest Moon games, and it was on the PlayStation 1 version. But I don't care enough to spend a veto here because that's the PlayStation 1. I was still very much a Nintendo kid during that era. So outside of like Final Fantasy stuff, I don't have any like deep-seated love for the PlayStation 1. But just looking through Metal Gear Solid, as I imagine the biggest blow to that.
But is it the best Metal Gear Solid?
Exactly. Any of the games that were on the PlayStation Classic, which is right out of arm's reach, but like that nobody wanted, so they didn't buy the system anyway. Obviously, I think Final Fantasy VII would have been the big one, and I kind of already killed that one for you by picking again Final Fantasy VI. So, no objection to me. I have no problem with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 making the list, even if it's a game I never played or a series I never touched.
This is where you're gonna get me, Frank. This is where you're gonna get me because if you had said Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1, I might have let it slide.
No.
Oh, you
that
two's
you're a
two's a better game than one.
Yeah, two's when they refined it down.
I mean,
2 doesn't have.
I love
2
3
does
to
not
death.
have the greatest song in the Tony Hawk series, though.
Superman by Goldfinger.
100%. So no, because like there's so many great games on the PS1 that I don't feel like I can. Like Harvest Moon Back to Nature is the definitive best Harvest Moon game. And I sunk so many hours into that game.
I'll also remind a lot of PlayStation 1 games are also available. Well, I guess we've already. No, never mind, because we've already taken out. We've already taken out the PS3 and PS4, so never mind. Yep.
Symphony of the Night, Castlevania Symphony of the Night's on the PS4.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
You like? I have to veto it because there's way better games on the PS1 than that.
It's interesting for me too, because I was coming at it from a different angle where it's like I was gonna say it was smart on Frank, because if you'd chosen what I think is the best Tony Hawk game, which is Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3, which I love and adore that game, it would have gotten massacred because it would have been a PS2 game, and it wouldn't have stood like it had just gotten like clobber knockered basically by that entire console. Like it was smart to go to the PS1 because I think it is, like for me at least, it is by far my least favorite PlayStation console, just because I was so young that I didn't just spend that much time on it really. But like also it doesn't really matter what I say or think because Cameron's already vetoed it. So.
Well, it's so Cameron has put forth a veto on the table.
Yeah.
Logan, do you want to side with Frank and override Cameron's veto and keep Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 on the list?
That's the thing. Like I love Tony Hawk. Like I like not even really 2 or 1 that much, but like Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3, I've played an ungodly amount of hours of. Like I know that soundtrack like the back of my hand. Like I know those maps. I know those skaters. Like and like the build your own map thing. Like I love Tony Hawk Pro Skater as a series. Like it is very much like a key moment in like my gaming evolution. And so like I'm not opposed to having some sort of recognition of that series somewhere on the list. Like, and again, Frank was smart and chose a PS1 where it's like I don't really have a favorite PS1 game. Like I'd have like maybe Crazy Taxi, right? But like Crash is like whatever to me. I'm not a huge Castlevania guy, right? So Symphony of the Night is one where it's like, and like also we could find a way to get that on like, so it's like, oh man.
I think Symphony of the Night was on PSP for the record. I think there was like a PSP port.
Also that, okay, that's a valid point.
Now, but give me
your.
Think about the further ramifications. If you take away, like, if you do this, I put out that veto.
Yeah.
If you side with Frank and Trevor sides with Frank just to spite me.
It's not just to spite you.
I mean, for me, it would be just to spite Cameron.
Yeah.
Don't be melodramatic.
No. I'm directly referencing Trevor spiting me, not you. if you side against me, know that I will remember this, like a Telltale game.
You don't have a veto. You can't do anything.
You won't have a veto
Oh,
anymore.
no.
For the rest
I
of
won't have a veto, but if you put forward a veto, I will side against it. I will let that thing that you vetoed go through.
You can't do it for all three of us in a way, because we can also just work together against you in this case. Ultimately, man, damn, this is an
I put out a big risk. I put out vetoing in this episode.
I'll make the decision for you, Logan. I'm not I don't care enough about Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 to save it on this list, so I'm fine vetoing. I'm fine upholding Cameron's veto. In favor of a potential other PlayStation game down the line.
Trevor will kill the baby for us.
There you go.
All right.
As the person who just never played the series, Cameron made the veto. He's the bad guy, and I am not
Tony Hawk Pro Skater is a great series. To Frank's point, it is really, really great series with great music, great maps, incredible gameplay. I think whether it's 1, 2, or 3, that is a series at the very least should have gotten a shout out and a kind of a nomination. And I think I totally stand by Frank nominating something in that series. It's a great series.
Yeah.
Also, a reminder: they came out on the Dreamcast. 1 and 2.
Yeah, but we're not gonna get a
that's fair. Well, again, by the time, and we will now have to have either an extended week 5, or go into a week 6, depending on how many other vetoes we get here, because we will not have 20 games after 5 rounds anymore. So, by the time we get into week 5 and beyond, we might pull to the Frank might end up saying, "Hey, I'm bringing Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 back on
Tony Hawk making a reappearance, fam."
I already had a different one written down for a different console, and I think I might just add the Dreamcast one as another backup just in case.
We have not addressed this, but the game is being vetoed. If you wanted to every round until you make it onto the list, you can put it forth again. It does not kill the game forever from appearing on this list. So it just prolongs potentially prolongs the inevitable, I guess. All right. So Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 vetoed by Cameron, our first veto in this fun debate, and that also
a bold first veto.
A very interesting second round of selections.
Video games?
I kicked us off with
I told
with
you
God
it'd
of
be very
War,
in the first one, yeah.
And I think I'm the one you're all the most mad at, really, probably as a result of that.
I don't think I'm not mad about it though. It's not a wrong decision.
It's a great pick.
It's a great pick, but I think
it is the best game of the 4.
I guess yes. Of these 4, I think it was conceivably the most contentious, but not enough to warrant the veto in this as compared to I think the other 3 games. Very much were nobody cares one way or the other to argue against until we reached Pro Skater 2, and that wasn't even necessarily a knock against Pro Skater 2. Just more Cameron's belief that there are better PlayStation games to potentially appear on the list later. And so if he really wants to get that spot back, he will have in next week he has the second round pick. So Logan could really screw him by picking Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 on the PlayStation.
Let's get it, kids.
There we go,
Frank. We got him. Dead
this.
to rights, man.
All right. So that is round 2 of this season of That Ultimate Video Game List show. I'm very much enjoying how our list is shaping up. I can, again, like I said earlier, I can very much see now some of the games that will be appearing lower on the list in our ultimate rankings. So that's a sigh of relief a little bit, and it's not going to be necessarily super combative the whole way through. But I also think we're getting into I think we've taken a lot of the heavy hitters out of the running now, with many elements of PlayStation kind of off the board.
I forgot. I just popped the Nintendo cherry. Nintendo's on the board now.
Oh yeah. Well, no, I had the Game Boy Advance.
That's true. You were correct.
No main console in Nintendo yet, though.
No, some would argue their handhelds are their main consoles, but anyway.
That's not. You're being semantic. But They're
Dead to
like,
rights.
that's
mean-
definition of, like,
I mean, their
semantics of all
handholds
time,
have
yeah.
certainly sold better than their consoles outside of the Wii. So, and I would imagine collectively their handholds have sold better than their consoles, because the Wii is basically the anomaly on that front. But anyway, so that wraps up this episode. Um, I'm very much looking forward to seeing kind of where we continue on from here. I think this has been a very fun round of selections. Uh, and I want to thank my guests, Logan Wilkinson. You can follow at Lefty Logie. Anything you want to
Mhm.
plug? I guess we're pre-recording this a couple weeks out before launch, so again, like
Yeah.
not too much new in the way of plugging, but
You should go check out That Wannabe Film Class. It's a great podcast about films and classes.
and not
Like I
clubs.
said last week, not clubs. Who would have said that last week? Don't pay attention to that guy. Listen to this kid instead. The class. That's where it's at. School. Learning about films and how to say things correctly.
You can follow Cameron Abbott at wherever he's at these days, as we identified last week, and an hour and a half ago, as of as of this recording, Cameron is changing his handles and may not be completely locked down yet, but we'll have that in the description. Um, any closing thoughts from you, Cam?
Just that remember, stay in school and remember to spay and neuter your pets.
Excellent.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Solid
expect that
calls.
one.
You can follow Frank at Relevant Jokes. Anything from you, Frank?
Yeah, I'm relevant jokes on every platform, and then just keep I guess what did we do last time? Like the subscribe to that nerdy site and this podcast and
Yeah.
everything like that.
Subscribe, retweet, tell your friends, break into your grandma's nursing home, give it to her, put it on your phone,
Give her that RSS feed.
double tap that.
Get those pills.
Seems like
Get
an
that hot
extreme
RSS
call
feed in
to-
the pill
to make,
bottle.
but,
Yeah.
Excellent. And you can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey on Twitter and most things at this point. Go ahead and hit me up on Twitch, because hopefully by this point I will be streaming, because
We should have also mentioned
I am
that.
I am likely unemployed still at this point in the run, so I might be doing some streaming a little bit more to try and go that pro streamer lifestyle. We'll see. Who knows? I don't know.
Hell yeah.
You can-
Trevor's the next ninja.
Yeah, exactly. That's totally my game. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site, That Nerdy Site on most social medias. Please, again, as we said last week and at the beginning of the show, as we are launching this whole new thing, all of your subscribes and likes and reviews and all those comments and stuff really help kind of get us into the algorithms of visibility and all that fun stuff. So do all that. Support us on Patreon if you can, and if you are so feeling generous or whatever, patreon.com/thatnerdysite. And yeah, that's another episode. We will be back next week with episode 3 of this first season, and yeah, looking forward to seeing where we go from there. Stay nerdy and be good to each other.